Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to NickTalks. Alrighty. I hope you guys are, chilling and yet grinding, but also chilling. Hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for returning for yet another episode of me talking for an hour. I'm glad that we both enjoy this. So, in this, I kind of want to start defining more broad categories. I might change the design of how I do things because I'm finding that a lot of the topics, because when I sit down to write these notes here, a lot of times I'll notice, sometimes I'll write them a bunch ahead of time, and then what I've been doing recently is just writing them right before the video so that it's just everything that's right on the top of the brain. Because sometimes I write them and I come back and I'm like, it's just not fresh enough. I haven't been working on those specific things or thinking about them actively enough for me to really believe in what I'm saying. I'm just not there, right? And maybe I will be again, maybe I was in the past. It's just not in the moment. And I just don't feel that there's passion there, and I don't enjoy it as much. And I don't think that it comes across as much. But regardless, I noticed that there's a lot of crossover and a lot of things that can be grouped into big things that I would like to talk more at length about. And, things like relationships, things like, I don't want to say self-improvement, but some things along these lines, like certain protocols to increasing the likelihood that you are in tune with the self. Stuff like this, health, and whatnot. I'm sure there's plenty more, but those are the things that I have off the top of my head. So maybe I'll recondition the way that we do these things in the future, but not today. So just be aware that is something that I am thinking about currently. Cool. So with that being said, we should just jump right in this bad boy. So speaking of self-improvement, I was having a conversation this morning, and based on some things that I've been reading, some things I've been listening to, I'm realizing, and actually just thinking back about a lot of instances of my past involving other people, that the inner work must be done. And what I mean by this is it is becoming more and more obvious to me that I can't just allow the past to be the past. I have to fully process it and find a way to not compartmentalize it, but deal with it and understand it and feel it and then move past it officially, right? And I don't even really know if I'm sure I know what that means. But it's becoming more and more obvious that is the truth. And, I think it's very easy for people, including myself, to kind of push that off and say yeah, okay, that's like basically saying I need therapy. And I especially am not one who is a huge advocate of therapy. I think that it helps certain people, and I think that it's not a bad thing. I think that it can be very useful. It's just not something that I need for myself. Something I feel as though I can do it on my own. I got it, And until that is not the case, I'm not going to therapy, essentially. If you were curious about what my thoughts were, that's in a nutshell what it is. There's a little bit more to it than that, but we don't need to get into that now. But anyways, it's obvious that this processing of what damage has been done, because everyone has experienced some form of trauma, some worse than others, and comparison is, the thief of joy. So I'm not really sure that's actually what that means, but still true nonetheless, that, comparing suffering is just a losing game no matter what. It's, put that stuff away, dog. But whatever trauma you have experienced, it needs to be processed so that you can live a more complete life. And as I'm moving forward, it seems that no matter how smart I get, no matter how fit I get, how strong, how fast, how capable, how able to understand, and I'm pretty much always chasing this perfect person, right? Not to an unhealthy, obsessive degree, but in a sense that like I want to achieve the highest level that I can, and setting my sights extraordinarily high is the way to do that, in my opinion. It's what I've been doing so far, and it has been working out pretty well. So, uh, point being is, although I am pursuing all of these things, and I am adding all of these, achievements to my portfolio of being the best I can be, I'm noticing that there is now almost a lacking sense of accomplishment in how I understand my past and how I've dealt with the things that I didn't even know that I needed to deal with. But as we'll see in the future, and I'm sure we'll talk about many times, as we'll discuss in the future, and as we'll talk about many times in between there, I pay a lot of attention to my dreams. I've always had very vivid dreams, and lately a lot of stuff has been creeping into my dream space that is very obviously leaning towards childhood issues. And that's usually not the case. Usually there is some element of that occasionally, but it's not so upfront. But lately it's been almost constant that I've been reliving some horrifying moments. And so this is why I'm bringing this up now, because it seems very obvious to me that this stuff has not been dealt with properly. The way that it is stored in my mind is not correct. It is not helpful. It is not leading me to be the best that I can be, because it's a folder that is still open, and therefore part of my attention is going there, and I don't like that. So, I know I'm very close with people who would most likely disagree with me on this, but I don't think that I think it is inevitable that we're going to have to end up here, no matter what. I think that the human experience cannot be complete without actually digging deep into what makes us us, and fighting, for lack of better terms, I'm quoting Instagram meme pages here, the inner demons inside. No, but actually, like the stuff that goes bump in the night down there and deep within, and, really facing it. And, my partner is big into meditation, and there are some things that have been said recently that have also echoed throughout some of the other spaces that I listen to, coincidentally, which, as they say, coincidences, the universe is rarely so lazy. So I usually try and pay more attention to that than maybe others would advise me to, but it has always worked out. So, point being is this seems like a universal truth, that this inner work must be done. You must dig deep within and feel and process and understand who you are at the core, right? And without it, you are just a resume. And so this is what I mean by, like, I'm getting smarter all the time, and I'm getting, faster and stronger and bigger and, like, more awesome, right? But then my entire sleep space is plagued by these not fun experiences. And so it's obvious that needs to be worked on as well, and I can't ignore it. Otherwise, who knows what the consequences will be. And speaking of ignoring it, I'd say that I have a pretty perfect example. There is someone in my life that I've been very close with for a very long time. Not the case anymore, but this is a person who refuses to take accountability for their actions, and I've seen this person truly desire to become a better version. And I've seen them make amazing, beautiful progress that I have been nothing but congratulatory about. And yet, I always see the switch that makes them falter and return to the animal. And it is always a lack of accountability, and it's really just a lack of accountability, but it's when I see the past return and accountability again put away. What I'm saying, I'm trying to not give too many details here. Obviously, this is very personal, and it's not something that I wish to discuss at this time. I'm thinking that at some point it's going to have to come out, and I think that it'll be very good for it to come out, but not today. So, Basically, there was immense damage done by this person to me and others in my life. And instead of saying, yo, that's my bad, dude, and, making amends, even in these moments where they seem to be making immense personal growth, just super rapid development in a positive direction, as soon as this challenge comes back up of a reminder of this past moment, they always deal with it the exact same way, which is like, not my fault. Like, they tell themselves the same story that removes themselves from, or removes blame from them. And as soon as that happens, every single time, I can literally see the moment that they start turning back to gray. And so for me, this is all just very reinforcing for the fact that these things, you have to come to terms with this. You have to come to terms with your failures. You have to come to terms with, like I said, the trauma and the deep, dark bad that is down there that you don't want to feel. And you may not even think it's a problem, because that's the thing, is that I never really foresaw this being an issue. In fact, I thought that I've dealt with my stuff pretty well. But now it's all resurfaced, so it's obvious that maybe the work that I did was not enough. And so, since I have this super perfect example of what not to do, it's now kind of all tying together that this must be done. And also, again, a perfect example of what will become of the person who refuses to do this. And I don't want to live that way. I don't want to be a slave to my past. I don't want to be, shackled to the pain of yesterday, right? Now, all of this, you may scoff at it. You may whatever. Listen, I'm the most pull yourself up by your bootstraps, fucking stop being a pussy, dude, get back in the game kind of guy, right? And yet this is rearing its head multiple times, and I'm not going to ignore something that constantly comes back to me just because of, oh, I don't want to be a pussy, I'm a man. No, dude, if it's a fact, it's a fact. If it's truth, it's truth. There is no, bias that can tell me that something that has popped up again and again and again and again, that is something that I shouldn't be at least paying attention to. Now, maybe I start going down this road and it turns out that it's like, oh, actually, it's not that big of a deal. And maybe I'm just giving it too much attention at the time, and that's why it's plaguing my dreams. Maybe there's some lurking variables within. But I don't believe that so far. So I'm going to have to freaking, hunt this monkey down. I don't really know even what that means, but we're going to have to figure it out, apparently. So, like I said, listen, don't listen. That's always the case here. You don't want to listen, you want to talk shit, I really don't care. But the things that I'm saying, I really believe. I wouldn't be putting them on the internet if I didn't believe what I'm talking about. And if I'm wrong, that's okay. I would rather speak my truth and tell what I believe and be wrong than pretend and say what everyone wants to hear. So, that's what we're on about these days, which is not as sexy as, benching 315, right? It's not so cool. But for the record, I can't bench 315. I'm getting close. Closest I've ever been is 305. I'm not benching that now. But the point being is, like, that's sexy to me, man. Are you kidding me? 315, that's daddy weight right there. That's big dog, right? 225 is like, you're pretty cool. You did it. You're officially a veteran of the gym. But 315, that's like hardened shit, dude. But anyways, point being, this is not something that seems very fun. It doesn't seem enticing. It doesn't seem, beckoning me. Well, it does beckon me, but not in the ways of like, man, I'm going to be so freaking cool when I'm able to do this. Nah, it just seems like it's the work. And the work must be done, and if the work is not done, then there will be consequences. And like I said, I want to be the best. I want to be the best, right? Now, that's not comparing myself to others. I want to be the best that I can be. Kind of like Ed Milet talks about what he believes, which I don't share this belief necessarily, but I do think it's a powerful I don't know, maxim, sure, that, motivates. And that he believes that when he dies, his God will introduce him to his twin. And his twin will be exactly what he was designed to become. And his worst nightmare is meeting this twin and him being a total stranger. But hopefully, they're at least pretty close, right? So I think that this is kind of, I didn't structure this because of Ed Milet. I found out about this much later, for the record. But it is kind of how I've always structured things. I grew up without a role model, a male role model, with no role models. I had no role models. Still have yet to find very powerful role models. I have some in some directions, but especially not male role models ever. I've never had a good example of what masculinity looks like, and so I've just had to create my North Star. And actually, since we're on this topic, I do want to talk about this as well. Just get it out there now. So, but, let me finish off first. I've had to just kind of create, again, this perfect person that I was meant to become. I don't know what that is, but I can be very creative about what I believe it to be. And, jacked, super smart, right? Very wise, understanding, good in relationships, all these things. Athletic, good with money, all these things. I can just think of positive attributes that, I believe that I should obtain, and then I go after them, right? And that is something that you can do. So, and again, I don't believe that this can be done without the work being completed, the inner work, the work that is so not fun, but you have to do. Cool. So, kind of close that off, and I didn't have this scheduled, but I figured I'd get into it anyways. Something that I was talking about this morning, I think, actually. And that is, sometimes you got to be your own parent, right? Now, myself, most of my friends, my partner, my parents, almost everyone that is in my immediate surrounding life did not have very good childhoods, or at least certainly far from perfect. And when you are young and you do not have positive parentage, yes, it sucks, but you have to become your own parent. And this is kind of what I mean by, it's kind of the same thing as creating your own North Star. It is, you have to formulate, what am I missing that I wish that I had? What do I want in a support system that I am not being given? And then create that for yourself and others, because you can give that to yourself. Will it be as good as if you had a mommy and a daddy that loved you? No, it sure the hell isn't, but it's better than, feeling like shit all the time. Okay. So we're on a little bit of a depressing streak here. First 18 minutes, man. Life sucks. No, it's all cool, man. This is all just stuff to think about. Okay. Don't get too deep in the weeds where it's making you, very upset. Right. But, definitely these things need to be thought about. So anyways, if you're in a position like that, it was very beneficial to me, and as I was speaking to my partner this morning, very beneficial to create your parents within your mind and be that for yourself. And then, as we talked about, paying for the sins of your parents before you, making sure that when you have children, you figured that shit out so that you know what to give them so they don't go through what you went through, right? Or don't have kids. It's your choice. But if you're going to have kids, don't continue the cycle, man. Don't go down the same road and give them the same shitty experiences, right? If your parents never said I love you and you are constantly starving for love as a result, then make sure you tell your kids you love them, right? If you felt abandoned because your parents were never home, then make sure you're home. You know what I mean? So create this figurative parentage in your mind of what you would have appreciated, or if you're still going through it, what you wish you had now, and then follow that North Star, and then make sure when you have the opportunity to get rid of that bad energy, that bad blood, that freaking shit stain on your family tree, make sure that you get rid of it. Make sure that you take care of that business, right? And this is, I'm sure something that you already probably know. If you have poor parents, maybe you haven't even realized they're poor parents, but you definitely recognize that things are not the way you wish they were. Um, you know, then these are going to be things that you're going to have to think about. And these are things that I had to think about, obviously. And that's probably the reason why I was able to get along so well with my friends that I did. Most of them, anyways. The ones that have stuck around is, the same thing is that you had to figure it out. Sometimes you just got to figure it out, man. And it's not perfect. It's not great, but you got to do it. You got to do it. And then, you got to make sure that you don't keep that going to the next one and the next one and the next one. Because if you don't get rid of it, you don't know that the next guy's gonna, right? You don't know that your son or your daughter is gonna be smart enough or wise enough or, in tune enough to do what you should have done. And obviously everyone's always gonna make mistakes and, there's gonna be corrections that are gonna be necessary either, but at least you can get rid of the stuff that's obvious, right? Right. Cool. Well, let's move on. Let's move on from there. But think about what I'm talking about and let me know what you think. If you're going through something like this right now, then it's cool, all right? It can be done, and it's not going to be pleasant all the time. But I turned out okay, So, which is not an excuse to be a bad parent. Just because I'm awesome doesn't mean that bad parenting is the way to go, all right? I have many comments on that. But anywho, let's move on. Let's move on. Put that one to bed for now. Cool. So kind of talking more about relationships is the importance of having standards and expectations within the relationship and also discussing them right now. Right away, this doesn't mean that every single time that you form a relationship, and I'm not, when I talk about relationships, I'm not talking about like a love interest. I'm talking about any relationship that you have, friend, coworker, anything. Every interaction that you have with a person is a relationship. Okay? So it's important to have standards and understand what you expect from different levels of relationship and what you will tolerate and what you will not tolerate and what to do if your expectations are not being met or if your standards are being purely violated, right? You have to have contingencies as to like, okay, I don't want to be lied to. Well, then you better know what you're going to do if someone lies to you and make sure that it's appropriate, I'll kill them. No, Jesus H, man, come on, dog, chill out, okay? No, think through about what is an appropriate response and what is going to get you to the optimum? What the hell? I'm blanking here. Man, so smart. I don't even know words. Optimal. The best possible scenario, Jesus H, Lord in heaven, that you want. You're optimizing. Are you optimizing for an outcome or are you optimizing for the relationship to continue in perpetuity, right? So it's important to have these expectations because if you don't, then I feel like every time that I haven't had expectations, then I just allow too much bullshit to happen within the relationship. And obviously, like, I'm not a pussy, so if someone's like doing me dirty, then I'm gonna, make sure that it's known that this is not going to happen, right? But at the same time, like there's some in between things that maybe are definite violations, but not bad enough for me to retaliate or have a conversation about that could have been dealt with early just by me setting positive expectations and discussing them. And I don't really mean sitting down with every person and saying, okay, this is what I want out of the relationship. This is what I don't want out of the relationship, right? I think that this conversation or these kind of conversations are probably very important when you're thinking of a long-term partner that you're going to be planning your life around. I think that is something very different that requires a lot more attention and care and planning and thought. But, friendships, work relationships, things like this, the expectations are discussed by the way you interact, okay? So it's like, if I obviously don't lie, then the expectation is being set that we don't lie to each other, right? And if you do, then you are violating this principle. So it's kind of an unspoken thing, but subconsciously understood normally. And then if it's violated, it's just a quick reminder like, yo, what the fuck, dude? Right? Cool. And then also, depending on the depth of relationship, discussing when a violation happens, right? So like, actually, like, you can't just let things happen. Every time, I'll get into this in a second, actually. We won't expand on that right now, but letting things happen without speaking up is a mistake, and you will continue to experience that, and you will get trampled on forever until the person decides that they don't need you anymore, right? So when someone messes up, as people always will, it's okay. It's not damning on the person that they have made a mistake, right? But the conversation needs to be had. Hey, you messed up. This is not okay. This is why it's not okay. This is what I expect to see in the future. And not like Mr. Teacher, just as like, this is a relationship. If we want this to keep going, then this is what I need, right? And I don't think it's, unreasonable. And then the person has the opportunity to either agree or disagree. And if terms cannot be met, then the relationship is discontinued, right? But if the terms can be met, then you have a more prosperous relationship going forward. And one of my best relationships that I have now has had especially one significant time where there was a major violation of the expectations of the relationship. And I reacted. I put all my cards right out front, and this person responded with an apology, sincere apology, and we discussed how things would be going moving forward, and then there was forgiveness on my end, right? And now, we have an awesome relationship, okay? But these discussions have to happen. And, I've talked to people who argue that, you don't have to talk about these things with the other person if that's not how the relationship is set up, but I wildly disagree. I think that the discussion always has to happen because the power of words, you have the things that are now spoken into existence, that this is what I have to see. So there's no confusion. Hey, you fucked up, dude. That's not cool. There's no confusion there. I'm upset at something you did, okay? And I expect some kind of, penalty to be exacted on you or reimbursement to be given to me in the form of an apology, in the form of, a good bro hug or, something like that, right? I expect there to be some sort of action to amend what has been done, right? Right. So I think that the discussion is a very important part of this, in my opinion. If you think that you can get it done without, let me know how that goes, okay? I guess that was kind of condescending. Sincerely, let me know how it goes, even though I don't believe that it will go well. Maybe it works sometimes, but I don't think that on the deepest of levels and at the, when the shit hits the fan, I don't think that it's a positive solution for, problems. So, like I said, expectations are important. That's kind of it. Also, I guess I should have said this in the beginning, but I want to start talking a lot more about relationships because as I get older and as I have more complex relationships and I pursue a greater depth of relationships with friends, family, loved ones, partner, all these things, it's obvious that, relationships are something that you can develop skill at. It is something that you can get better at communicating, at understanding, empathy, all these things. It's something that if you take the time and energy, I believe that anything that you put your mind to, you can figure it out, right? Like I've talked about in the past where I can stop burping with my mind, or hiccups. I can stop hiccups with my mind just by concentrating and calming my diaphragm. I can stop hiccups within seconds, right? With much more reliability now than in the past, but around an 85 to 90% success rate. That's pretty damn good because usually they stick around forever, right? So I believe anything can be done, including being good at relationships. It is something that you can massively develop and is so important if you want to be more fulfilled and you want to get more out of your relationships and give more to your relationships, is understanding how they work, how they should work, how they shouldn't work, what is good, what is bad, do's, don'ts, these things, And that's something that it's actually so much more interesting now that I've developed it, especially because I had not a single positive example of what a good functioning relationship is pretty much my whole life. I'd say that the relationships that I have in my life are the best examples of what a good relationship is that I've ever seen. right? And that's just because I've taken the time and the people have come with me on this journey. Right? This isn't like I'm just the best at relationships and now I get all the good stuff out of it. No, it's that like I have started to do more work and raised the standards of what it's like to be in a relationship, and the people that I'm in a relationship with meet those expectations, and there's free flow of expectations back and forth, and support, and love within, and all these things. And the people who don't want to meet these expectations, they fall to the side. Because the thing is if the relationship isn't going to work, it's okay. It's okay. There's billions of people on this planet, right? Not every single person that you've known you have to stick around with for life, and that's okay. Does it hurt sometimes? Yes. Is it sucky? Sure. But, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And that can be your fault. It can be the other person's fault. It can be a number of things. But, the way that I approach it is, hey, this is what I want out of life. This is what I want from my partners. This is what I want from my friends. This is what I want from my family, right? And I'm willing to give that and much, much more in return if you just meet, a basic level of return on that investment. And if someone is not willing to return on that investment, if they're not willing to invest, that's what I'm trying to say. I am willing to invest a significant amount in relationships. And if the other person is not willing to invest in the same amount in the relationship, that's fine. But then there are two things that can happen from that. Either A, I will lower my investment to the relationship so that I'm not wasting energy trying to make this something that it's not, which is also okay. No bad blood there. Or if it's not even worth continuing in any investment because their investment is so low, then so be it. Out with the wind, gone with the whatever. But, then the relationship is terminated. And I really don't like terminating relationships, cutting people off. I don't like doing that. I think it's a very extreme use case, but it's definitely a tool in the toolbox, and sometimes it has to be done. But, if the investment is not being matched, then things fall away. And it's happened, numerous times, and it's okay. So don't let this attachment plague you. Just understand investment and how much you are willing to give to a relationship. And if you are a giver by nature, and the other person is more of a taker, then you just know that that's going to become toxic at some point, unless you can balance that out and learn to lower your investment so that you're not just spending resources on someone who's just going to take them, right? And recognize this, and if it's the case, then just level things out, and then either that relationship can continue or it falls away. The chips fall where they may. Right. So, flipping back on what I was talking about earlier about violations, is not allowing violations of personal principle within relationships. And this is kind of just like, calling out the BS as it comes. It's not letting someone treat you disrespectfully. If you feel hurt by something, maybe it's not super reasonable, but at least discuss it and be like, yo, this is how I feel. It's not, a far stretch to say that, the only way to solve the problem is by addressing it. Okay. And if they're not willing to address it, then it's obvious like, oh, okay, they don't give a shit. Cool. Then you can move on. And then it's easy to drop that, right? Cool. So, not allowing violations. And this is going to come back again when I have a wage war on weakness thing that's I'm not ready for, but it's planned for a future video. But part of this is that it's not allowing weakness within your relationship. And what I mean by this is when you allow someone to have a weak spine that you are in a relationship with in any number of ways, this can be they're just generally a pussy. This can be they just have a hard time sticking to, a moral true north. This can be they, set standards for behavior and then violate them themselves. It could be dishonesty, whatever. Weakness of character is what I mean. If you allow that, then it will spell doom for them and you. They're going to bring you down like a sinking ship, right? And so it's been my experience, anyways, that every single time that I've allowed weakness or permitted weakness of character within the people around me without calling it out directly and ruthlessly, that's another part, is that like I can call it out, but then if I stay in the relationship, even though I, you know, repeatedly say, hey, we don't steal, hey, we don't lie to people, hey, you know, we respect each other's time, hey, we, you know, if I have to say it all the time, all the time, all the time, then the relationship doesn't, you know, again, this is the investment thing. They are not investing the same amount as I am, so, you know, again, we go. So every single time, and this has happened to me, like I said, I didn't have many good examples growing up of what a good relationship is, not even good friendships. I never, like, just nobody in my life, I guess, is good at relationships, and so I had to figure it out myself. I think we've done a pretty bang up job so far. You know, I had to learn a lot of lessons the hard way, but one of those lessons is that every single time that I've allowed for weakness of character in any capacity, it has always hurt me more than it should have. It hurt me more in the long run than it would have if I just came right out the bat and said, listen, motherfucker, I've told you this many times that this is like horrid behavior. I'm not the rule maker. I'm not Mr. What I say goes, but there is just basic human, you know, decency, and you are violating these things. Okay? So either come correct or get the fuck out of here, right? That's what should have happened. That's what should have happened every single time. All these relationships that I can think of in the past that have failed, right? Some their fault, some mine, in terms of violations. We can even spin it that way. The relationships that I was the one violating, the relationships that I was the one investing less than they were, right? If they had come to me and done this thing, you know, ruthlessly weeded out the bad weakness of character, then things would have been different, right? But they weren't, you know, because that weakness was allowed in, and either I was allowed to be not such a good guy, or I allowed someone else to be not such a good guy or gal, right? And this is, I've found, especially true with love interests, personal relationships. Can I say that? Sure. Is that, you know, my man, I like women, right? So if I allow for women to be on some bullshit, it's going to bite me in the ass, and they're going to be crazy, just because that's the nature of the beast, because I don't keep accountability. It's about holding the other person in the relationship accountable, and if you don't hold them accountable, you know, sometimes you get really lucky, as I have been in many of my existing relationships now, and they just pursue the right path with, you know, occasional reminders, you know, but sometimes you don't, and they just, you know, if you aren't there to like keep them accountable, then they won't be. They'll take every inch you give them. So, anyways, it's something that is hard. It's hard, especially like there are some people that, depending on their relationship to you, how they're related, how they're not, it is more difficult than others to call out this bad behavior. They are set up as more of a beast than they need to be. And that's just real shit right there. You know, it's scary sometimes. And, you know, you got to do it. You got to do it. Otherwise, you're just going to get beat up. You're going to get beat up by them mistreating you. And that's how it's going to be, man. I have experienced this all too many times. So, you know, I will know. I would know. But, yeah, man. Not quite the peach of an episode that you may have been hoping for, but this stuff's important. This stuff's very important, and such better quality of life comes from, you know, this, you know, the little things, which are not actually so little, you know, working on yourself, working on your relationship with other people, you know, understanding what to expect, what not to expect, or what expectations to have, what expectations not to have, what works, what doesn't. This stuff is, you know, we're trying to optimize here. That's what we're always trying to do. And so relationships are not an exception, right? I want to have a good quality of relationships. I want to have relationships where I am excited to be within them, or I don't want them, right? And some relationships can exist in a spectrum of this, right? But if it's not fulfilling me, if it's not serving me, then what is the point, right? If all it is doing is draining resources, then it's a waste of time. It's like if I had a business that only lost money every single year, then shut the business down, right? Why would I continue the business, right? If I had a car, all it did was break. Literally every single month, something broke on it. Get rid of the fucking car, dude. Get a bike. Be better off, right? So, that's what I got. That is what I got. So, we kind of jammed all these things together, but I'll wrap this up shortly here. So, the first thing that we went over is doing the inner work, doing the stuff that sucks. You know, it doesn't have to suck, I guess. Maybe I'm framing it poorly, but to me, it's not super interesting. Maybe as I go down this path, I will find much more joy within it and me, but not the case today. And, you know, doing this inner work, I don't believe that you can be complete without doing it. And as I mentioned, I have a pretty prime example of what it looks like, what the results are of not doing the work. Somebody moving a piano up there. Or over there. Either way. And then the importance of having standards and expectations in a relationship, for a relationship, and the importance of discussing not only your expectations, but when these expectations are violated, right? Discussion. I emphasize the word discussion. Speak it out. Talk it out, right? And then hug it out. It's all cool, right? We all make mistakes. And then do not allow violations of personal principle or weakness within relationships. I have snuff out weakness quickly or be doomed, right? But that's true. That's true, man. And it may be a real slow fade to gray, brother. It might be a long, painful road. And then at the end of it, when you finally pull your head out of your ass and you get out of there, you go, damn, I should have made that choice a long time ago. I don't know why I didn't. You know, it's easy to be, you know, I'm not sure if we've discussed this actually. I don't think I've mentioned it here before, but the analogy of the frog in the boiling water. If you have a pot of boiling water and you throw a frog in, he will immediately jump out to avoid the burns, right? But if you have a pot of room temperature water and you throw the frog in there and let him sit and then slowly turn the heat up, he will sit in there until he burns to death, right? So it's hard to see truly when you're this close, when you're right in front of the problem. But you know, you just got to take a step back and think about what is appropriate here. What is really, you know, what can I allow within my life, and is this person, this action, this thing violating that? And then either do away with it or confront it and then do away with it. You know, figure it out. Right. So that's what we got. Now onto our life hack, which is a relatively simple one, but something that is very important, and that is hydrate, dude. Just drink so much water. Drink so much water. I can literally feel in the morning when I wake up, I drink like almost a gallon of water before I go to the gym. And is it a gallon? Man, those things are like big. Whatever. I don't have any here. But you see me drinking out of these big Flanagan's cups, dude, and they're like this giant. I drink 2 of those before I go to the gym, right? And then I drink my shaker cup full on the way to the gym, right? That's got to be a gallon, right? But I can literally feel the point when the hydration sets in. My mind like kicks over into gear and I feel way quicker, way more lubricated, right? And if I'm not hydrated, my joints start to hurt. If I'm very dehydrated, you know, your pee stinks, it looks gross, you know, it's just way more functioning to be hydrated, man. And it's like, water's just so good. You can get it sparkling, you can get it not, you can get all these different places that it comes from. There's a million different types of water and they're all great, dude. Just, you know, stay hydrated, man. You can use sparkling water to curb your appetite if you're trying to lose weight. Oh my goodness, water's the best stuff of life, right? So just keep it coming in. It's the greatest. It's the greatest, I promise you. Cool? So, hopefully not too doomy and gloomy, this episode here, but it's all real stuff, and this is just the beginning of the things that we're going to have to go into. And the further we go down this road, I'm sure the darker it's going to get. So, with that being said, that's it. I thank you all very much for watching. I do appreciate you guys very much. There are few of you currently, hopefully more to come in the future. But I do appreciate you. Thank you. Hey, if you want to comment, man, that would mean the world too, as well. So I ain't begging for likes, though. Come on, dog. Although there is some data that I've seen. Just kidding, I haven't seen data, but I've heard people talking about how asking for likes and subscribes in the beginning does actually increase liking and subscribing. But yeah, we'll see. I'll test that for myself. Thank you. But anywho, thanks for watching. Appreciate you. And with that being said, Nick out.